we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at constructing sentences in essays. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this with examples as we go. But we're going to look at starting with a very simple sentence, which is not very specific. We're going to look at how you build it up with details, so you end up with not only a more rigid answer, but you come up with a complex sentence, that you come up with something which is written formally, which is written in a way which integrates your discussion and your evidence. Also, finally does so in such a way where you are giving not only a very strong answer, but you're following all the basic rules of discussion and essay writing and developing your answer in such a way that you're meeting your criteria when you are writing an essay. So let's just look at some basic things. We're going to look at the basic process first, as I said. How to guarantee what you're writing is creating meaning. Finding the right sorts of points that you can use in your discussion and how to make it meaningful. Combine this with an example, and we'll expand on this example and we'll keep on developing this example as we go. So let's start with the question. So the question we'll look at is, why should people be cautious of drugs? Very basic question, but we're going to expand on it. So your sentence should be trying to link the subject and your answer together and develop your argument. So your subject in this case is why people should be cautious of drugs. And your answer is something that should be trying to link back to that question. Developing your argument is developing that link and making it much, much stronger. So let's start with the basic answer. So, okay, what's one reason people should be drugs? Drugs kill people. Now, it's an example, as I said, but it's not a very strong one. For one, its meaning is quite vague, and obviously there'll be a lot of questions that you ask because you'll be saying, well, drugs sometimes don't kill people. Sometimes you could go on for days about this. It needs a lot more detail, and that's what we're going to look at adding. So making sure that we expand on this idea of drugs kill people and really sort of develop that idea and connect it to the question, because that's not a reason people should be cautious of drugs, all it is, but it needs a lot more detail to make it a complete answer. Adding some detail will help you make your argument specific and make it proven. It'll also show that you have analysis skills and that you can expand on it. That's what we're going to be looking at trying to do when we expand our answer. So you're trying to find specifics first of all, that it's proven. So that's what your evidence will do. You're referring to something like a survey or something like that, which will back up your idea that people should be cautious of drugs. You're also coming out specifically and saying, what about drugs will kill you? And then using that evidence to say why. But also, we'll expand upon that initial idea that you've gone from drugs kill people to your complete answer. So let's look at the next step. Abuse of either illicit or legal drugs can be fatal to their users. Okay, so we're immediately going more specifically, saying that obviously referring to illicit or legal drugs, so saying that both sorts of sets of drugs can be dangerous and can be fatal to their users. So, okay, expanding on that idea of kill, but also that they can be. Not necessarily saying that drugs will kill every time, but that they can be fatal, and this is a reason why they should be cautious. However, this could also be a little bit more specific. Could really use a lot more evidence to support that, because yes, they can be fatal, but in what way? So adding specific detail from a text or referring to exact details is even better. So in this case, we'll just imagine that we had a specific text and we'll just refer to that and then link it straight back to that answer. So statistics from the National Drug Prevention Centre has found the abuse of illicit or legal drugs results in up to 1,000 deaths per year in Australia. And it is for this reason that users of any drug should be cautious. Okay, so immediately we've got detail and evidence there. Now, in this case, we haven't really referred to what exact statistics are there, except that we've got 1,000 deaths per year. Obviously, we'll be trying to find some exact specifics, but in this case, because we're trying to save a bit of room here, we won't. It's from the National Drug and Prevention Centre, so it's from a credible source. It's reporting their findings as proof that what I'm saying, this reason drug users should be cautious, is true because of the fact that they found that the abuse of illicit and illegal drugs results into 1,000 deaths a year. Linking that straight back to your argument. So you've got discussion there, and this is all integrated together. This isn't a quote. This is you using evidence in your discussion and using it in such a way that you're linking it straight to your question and answer, and that you're essentially proving it. And you don't really need to do much more than this, because immediately you've got your evidence, you've got your discussion, and then you've got your link straight back to the question. So you've fully answered it in this case. Now, if you're writing this in the essay, obviously you want to be doing a little bit more than one sentence. But this is an example of how a complex sentence can do everything and link it straight back to your answer, and then you would just gradually build upon it as you go and as you answer each question. Constructing discussion and evidence is something that you be trying to work them together. In other words, never write an evidence or a quote as a single sentence on its own. If you're referring to something and you're trying to find a quote to back you up, don't just write it there in isolation and say, oh, that proves it. Because immediately the first question, and this is the first question I ask, is, well, why does it prove it? I mean, all you've shown is that you found a quote from the text. So what you need to then do is you need to tie it in with the rest of your discussion. And your specifics should bond your ideas to a logical answer to the question. If I was to back up the thing that I mentioned before on drug use, and just to say statistics on drugs found that 1,000 people died per year. Okay, why should people be cautious of drugs in it? Just saying that 1,000 people die each year because of drugs. It's not saying why people should be cautious of them. So that little section at the end, where it's been worked into my discussion, is helping to point it in a direction, even if it's just to say, and it is for this reason, that people should be cautious of drugs because of the fact that 1,000 people die per year. It's only a very simple connection, and it might seem completely obvious to you. But the thing is, your job is to prove it. And through your further discussion and development, what you are doing is you're helping to strengthen that link that you've created. Now, obviously, I only have one sentence there to develop that idea. But in an essay, you'll have a lot more time. So you'll be writing more things and more ideas to supplement that point and to help to build on that answer. And by writing more complex sentences that refer specifically to that statistic, you're going into more detail about why people should be cautious of drugs. So that's what I mean by that. So you're tying it together. So you're not putting two things in isolation, saying, I've done my topic sentence, I've done my discussion, now I need to do the next bit and find some evidence. That's all well and good, but you need to find a way to tie those things together. So don't leave a line and write your evidence underneath. Put them all together. Make them make sense. Make them work for you. That's what you're trying to do, and that's how you are going to expand and develop your argument. The question you might be asking is, okay, how do I choose the correct one? How do I choose the right example? How do I choose the right detail? Your essay question and your discussion and your detail are all linked together. This is a quality of all good responses. Now, immediately, okay, how do I do that? First of all, essentially what you're doing is you're finding what sort of evidence will match your question, or how you can actually make evidence work for you. So I'll explain that. You take your stimulus text, your film, or whatever it is that you're discussing and you're talking about, is you'll go for a key section and you'll pick out some quotes or some examples. Then you'll be trying to link that in with your discussion. Now, if you put those two things together, your discussion and your quotes, what you're effectively doing is saying that this thing I found in a text is helping to prove what it is I'm trying to say, directly suggests that what I'm trying to prove now is linked straight back to the questions. Not only are you answering the question, you're developing an argument, you're also using evidence. Now, this is the most important thing. If you have reason, and if you have a way of developing your argument in such a way that shows you have reason, then what you're doing is essentially answering every outcome. Now, the outcomes from the Boyle studies is that you can develop your ideas with detail, and that you can do so in such a way where you can analyze it, you can criticize it, you can show your understanding in a number of different ways. Matching what is expected of you, then being able to develop your ideas in such a way that everything you write makes sense. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. In summary, what you're trying to do now is you're trying to start with a very simple idea. Think about expanding it in such a way where it's directly related to the question. Find evidence which is going to support your claim, and then try and work it into your sentences. And then tie them all together in a paragraph. And you follow the basic structure of a topic sentence at the top, which you're then trying to prove with your sentences and with your discussion. And that's basically all there is to constructing sentences in essays. So I wish you the best of luck with that. It takes a lot of practice, so don't give up on it, and certainly keep trying it as you go. Keep trying to find evidence, develop it, discuss it, expand upon it, develop it into whole paragraphs, and then continue on with ideas which are linked, and then stick with a cohesive argument. And basically you can't go wrong. Otherwise, until next time, I'll see you later.